Okay, the following is a videotape deposition. Salvatore Rastrelli, taken in the matter of the estate of Joann Matouk Romain v. the City of Grosse Pointe Farms et al. This case is to be held at United States District Court, Eastern District of Michigan, Southern Division, for the Honorable Linda V. Parker. The case number is 414CV12289. We are located at 26700 Lasher Road, Southfield, Michigan. Today's date is November 3rd, 2016. The time is 10:27, and I'll counsel introduce yourselves, please.
Keith Altman on behalf of the plaintiffs.
George DeGroot on behalf of the City of Grosse Pointe Farms. Daniel Jensen, Jack Patterson, Andrew Rogers, Richard Rosati, Mike McCarthy, Keith Colombo, Antonino Trupiano, John Walco, Frank Zielinski, and Mr. Ricky Good.
Chris Raiti on behalf of the City of Grosse Pointe Woods, Andrew Pezahowski, John Kosenki, John Ross, Keith Wazak, and Anthony Shalhoub.
Mr. Rastrelli, if you raise your right hand, please. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your witness this morning.
Good morning. Would you state your full name for the record?
Salvatore Rastrelli,
Do you have a middle name?
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel. Are you in any manner whatsoever related to an Edmund Salvatore Rastrelli?
Edmund Salvatore?
Yes.
That's my son.
That's your son, and how old is he?
He's 30, let me think now, 33?
Thank you.
No,
The
34.
record should reflect that this deposition is being taken pursuant to notice and to be used for those purposes allowable under the federal rules of civil procedure and the federal rules of evidence where applicable. Mr. Rastrelli, my name's George DeGroot, and you heard who I represent in this matter. I'm going to ask you some questions today concerning your involvement with the matter that brings us all here today. Can you give me your residential address?
3110 Southeast Slater Street.
It's in Stewart, Florida?
Yes, sir.
And is that the same address that you use for your business?
Yes, sir.
And your business is what type of business?
Investigative consulting.
And what's the name of it?
Rastrelli Investigations.
Any other businesses that you have?
I write novels.
You write novels. What type of novels?
Fiction and nonfiction.
Any particular
Genre?
subject matter?
Typical criminal mysteries, and then the non-criminal or the nonfiction books are, the one book I wrote was about how to protect yourself, how not to be a crime victim.
And the fictional novels are crime novels?
Crime novels, yeah.
When you write a crime novel, I assume you start out with some type of an outline and a game plan, and you're going to have probably a victim. Am I right?
Yeah, typically.
Who's the victim in this case?
Objection form.
Go ahead.
Are we talking about my book, or are we talking about the
This
case?
This case.
Well, in the case, we have a decedent. I would consider her to be a victim.
All right, and I'm assuming when you start to write your fictional crime books that you have someone who's going to be a subject, maybe more than one subject, to actually perpetrate the crime.
Well, there would be probably more than one or one.
And would you have to, in writing your book, come up with a motive for the subject to perpetrate the crime?
Not necessarily.
Can you tell me, when you reviewed this particular case,
Yes.
were you able to identify any motive that Daniel Jensen has with respect to participating in the murder of Joann Matouk Romain?
Objection form.
Go ahead.
I don't know who Daniel Jensen is, and I was not brought into this to come up with a motive
All right.
for this case.
All right. So you don't have any opinion as to whether any of the defendants in this case were actually involved in the alleged murder of Joann Matouk Romain. True?
Objection form. No, I don't have an opinion on any of these people participating in harming her.
All right. Do you have any opinions with respect to any of the individually named defendants conspiring to conceal the identity of any alleged murderer?
Objection form. Sir? If you don't mind, if you would look at me, because I have a hard time sometimes hearing when somebody looks the other way.
Just look at the camera,
I
that's
know.
all you got to do.
But he's not asking me the question you are.
I know. Did you hear the question?
No, that's why I need you to look at me when you talk to me.
Can you tell me, sir, if you have any opinions as to whether or not any of these individual defendants conspired with others or conspired with each other to conceal any aspect, alleged murder, missing person, or the drowning of Joann Matouk Romain?
I have no
Objection
opinion.
Pardon me?
No opinion.
Do you have any opinions concerning whether or not any constitutional rights were deprived of Joann Matouk Romain as a result of the actions or inactions of any of these specifically named defendants?
Objection form.
I didn't catch the whole question. You'd have to,
Could you please read that back, madam?
Do you have any opinion as to whether or not any constitutional rights were deprived of Joann Matouk Romain as a result of the actions or inactions of any of these specifically named defendants?
oh, constitutional rights.
Objection form.
No.
Now, you were served with a notice in this matter to bring various materials, and I'm going to show you a copy of the notice. And I'm going to ask if you have complied with the request in said notice.
Well, what I have received is in that pile.
All right.
Okay.
So everything that you utilized, with the exception of perhaps your own thoughts, knowledge, training with respect to analyzing this case, is contained within the pile of documents that you brought with you here today.
That's
Objection
correct.
form.
Well,
That's true?
that's true. It's in the
All right.
paper.
Now, looking at, first off, let's have you identify, what is Exhibit 1?
This is my report based on the materials that I reviewed pertaining to this case.
When were you first
Can I just ask a
contacted?
question? It looks like there are two, I'm sorry, I thought it was two documents there.
It's just one.
I thought it was two, I'm sorry.
Can you tell me when you were first contacted to become involved in this matter?
It was 2016. This had to be a little over a year ago. I would say April or May.
Of 2015?
Yes. Might have even been March.
Right. And were you contacted by way of correspondence? And when I use the term correspondence, I refer to people like myself that write a letter or dictate a letter, as well as anything that came to you in an electronic format.
Phone call.
Phone call from whom?
I believe the first phone call I received was from, I'm not sure if it was from Miss Tountis, Katie? I'm not sure how you say her last name. And then Michelle Romain. I'm not sure which was the first phone call at this point.
So you had personal conversations with Michelle Romain?
Yes.
Did you have personal conversations with Michelle Romain before receiving for review any of the materials you brought with you here?
Well, I received a phone call. And she spoke with me briefly about the case, had not received any documents at that point.
All right. What did Michelle tell you about the case when you had that initial phone call with her?
Objection, hold on, objection, that goes to the collaborative effort, the collaborative discussions between counsel and the party and their attorneys, and that is protected from disclosure under Rule 26, and I'll instruct the witness not to answer.
Excuse me?
You
Did
heard
you
my-
ask Miss Michelle Romain where she was when she placed her call?
Objection, I'm not gonna allow him to answer any questions about the conversation.
All right, we'll reserve a little bit of time and see if we have any better luck than Mr. Radner's had in reaching the court to ascertain whether or not that is a question that should be answered today. How many times have you spoken with Michelle Romain on the telephone?
I couldn't give you a number.
Do you keep an
More than
accurate account? More than 10.
Yeah, that would be about it. I couldn't give you any more.
And were any of those phone conversations more than 10 with Michelle Romain before you received any materials concerning the case?
No. I
Do you-
think I received material after about the third phone conversation.
All right. Now, what do you charge an hour for your review?
200,
$200 per hour?
yes.
And do you keep a ledger with respect to the amount of time that you devote to your review?
In this particular case, I didn't charge her by the hour. I did it for one lump sum. There was too many.
When you received your decision to take a lump sum, did that encompass that lump sum up to a period of work, if you will, and then after that, maybe there'd be another lump sum or an hourly
No.
basis?
The way we broke it down was I would come to Michigan, review the material, go to the scene, review the scene, make observations, and basically, write a report. And I put together the PowerPoint for the case, and that was the end of it. As far as anything that came after that, like a deposition, would come from whoever ordered me to come.
All
It
right.
had nothing to do with Michelle Romain.
What was the flat fee that was charged?
You can answer.
5,000.
And do you have any basis upon which to accurately estimate the hours of time devoted to this case that you've put in?
I can actually tell you it's a couple hundred, about 200 hours between the phone calls and coming up here and travel and putting together PowerPoints and reports.
How many visits to Michigan regarding this case have you made?
How many visits?
Yeah.
This is my second time in Michigan.
And do you remember when the first time was?
It was back in, I want to say it was back in May or June. I'd have to look back on the PowerPoint to see the date.
Is a copy of your PowerPoint attached to
It's
Exhibit
in there.
1?
It's in there somewhere. It's not in this, it's in
All right, let
there.
me hand you what's marked as Exhibit number 3, and can you tell us what that is?
This is the PowerPoint.
And does that indicate in the PowerPoint when it was that you first came to the wonderful Great Lakes State for this case?
Hang on, I'm looking now, trying to see right.
I skipped 2.
Yeah, June 2015.
And what is it that you're reviewing that allows you to ascertain?
Well, these
it was
pictures
June?
I photographed. These are pictures I took when I was up here from the water back at the break wall.
All right, so how long were you here in June of 2015?
I believe I was here for 3 days.
And during those 3 days, what did you do?
Went to St. Paul's, to the church, measured the distance from the approximate distance from where the Lexus was parked to the water's edge, or to the curb, where the first indication of some sort of footprints were seen. Then did some measurements from that area down to the water's edge, and then everything in between, the break wall and things of that nature. And then photographed the break wall, photographed the water, the bottom composition, and then back at the break wall.
Have you spent any time residing in the state of Michigan?
Residing here?
Right.
Other than a hotel, no.
All right. Would it be safe to say that you have no personal knowledge, based on any observations, of what type of erosive damage occurs to concrete break walls throughout Michigan winters along Lake St. Clair?
I wouldn't have personal knowledge. I was making comparisons from photographs that were taken in the time that she disappeared during that particular time period, and then ultimately when I came here 5 years later.
All right. And what photographs did you receive that were allegedly indicated to you represented the time frame of Ms. Matouk's disappearance?
I have to go back through here, because there were photographs that I put in here that I took, and then there was comparison photographs. Let me find them.
And are those slide, are they,
Wait, can you finish answering your question?
I'm going to let him answer the question, but I want to know, are they paginated, such as the ones that we've been provided, so that when you identify a photograph, we can say, yes, that's on page such and such?
Let me find the comparison photographs. Because like this one, for example, is one I took, and then this is the same spot from 2010, but it's snow covered in 2010.
Well, what's the title of that page, since there's no number on it?
Alleged entry point is what it says. I didn't put a page
Can
on
you tell
it.
us what page number is on that? You don't have a page on that?
Trying to
He doesn't
find-
have
Okay, he doesn't have a page. There it is.
There's something missing here. Did the whole thing
May I
print
see
out?
the entry point again, so I can compare that with
Yeah,
what's
I'm
in
looking
mine?
for here.
Sal, let me just see that page for 1 second,
Yeah.
just so you can make
There
sure.
was
And then you
another
can
one.
continue. Is this the one you're looking at?
I get the whole thing printed out.
Okay, it looks like it, and it's, appears to be page 18 of his report.
This doesn't seem to be... There's items I remember putting in here
You passed another one.
of the thumb drive. Do you have the thumb drive here that I sent it from? Oh, here they are. I must have skipped over it. Randall, these are pictures in 2015, and then Randall took these pictures this year, and then I took that other picture in 2015. And this picture was taken by Randall, the investigator that,
And what time?
in 2010.
Do you know when in 2010?
No, I don't know. Bill Randall would have to tell you that. I don't know.
Were you ever provided with any of the photographs of the area of where footprints led to the water with no return footprints that were taken by Midwest Technical Recovery Team?
Objection form.
So you don't know what photographs they may have taken in the month of January 2010 without snow on top of that break wall to make a comparison, correct?
Well, this photograph was taken in 2010, so that would be my best guess at what the break wall looked like in 2010, and then my picture in 2015, which is right here, pretty much the same amount of damage in
Well,
that
who
time.
pointed out the location for you
Well,
in 2015?
There was a couple of ways that was done, from the police photographs that are taken the very night of the incident. You see a trail of some kind of footprints, and then there's also an impression where someone sat on the break wall. And based on that, we were able to ascertain what the alleged area was.
Can you point out on the Romain 2010 break wall damage comparison photograph where on that photograph you believe someone sat down on that break wall?
Well, here's part of it, right here.
No, I'm not asking with the snow covered. I'm asking for one without the snow,
Well,
which is your 2010,
I
and I'm
have to
trying to
work back.
figure out.
I have to work back, correct?
All right.
I mean, now the only way I'm going to know is to look for something that is obviously different about the whole break wall. And here's the big break where the steel is exposed.
All right, why don't you
That's the
circle
first
that for us,
And
please?
then to, go back,
Now, let me ask you this, though. Go
Right,
back
yeah.
to what's circled.
right,
All right. That is an area that would be to the right of where it appears someone was seated, correct?
right, but I was using that area.
As a reference
As a
point.
reference point.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. So then when I took my photographs, it was pretty much the same thing. Back to your question about where the person was seated, I'm going to find that photograph. The copies aren't as clear as the actual PowerPoint itself, so looking at the pictures, it's hard to...
It was a page that had two
Yeah,
next
I'm
to
trying
each
find it,
other.
Yeah.
George, for clarity, do you want me to see if I can get some color versions of this printed out? Would that make your examination easier?
It would make it easier
It's
because
easier for him,
they
fine.
blend
Okay.
in. It really blends in. It's hard to...
Katie, whether we can print out 3 copies of Sal's PowerPoint presentation to the color printer? Okay. Do you have another topic you can go to and come back to that? if
You
it's
won't let him
easier?
answer it, so
I'm not trying to stop him from answering it. I'm just
Go back to
saying.
the question, and let me see if I can do it without the picture right there.
I'm asking you to look at the photograph that you have referenced as, to your knowledge, being taken by Mr. Randall in 2010, and it was on the left side of a page, and you compared it to another photograph that was taken at a later point in
Right, there was
And that would
Romain
be-
photo, 2010, and then a Randall photo in 2016, and then my 2015 photo. They were all of the same general direction.
All right. Can you indicate on your June 2015 photograph the area where you believe an individual was seated on June 10th?
Well,
Or
based,
January 12th, 2010?
I understand that. Based on my memory recollection of that photo where someone was seated, all you can see past that point is some exposed steel, a little to the right. So my best guess would be somewhere between, if you're using my photograph, would be over here somewhere, down this slope.
Okay.
Not saying right over the hole, but somewhere in that region.
So she could have been in an area where there was no environmental impediment to her walking, other than possibly snow.
Yes.
All right.
So yeah, that's possible, but I don't know. A lot of the photographs that I received from the police that night, photographs that were taken, were not done in the normal method that they should have been done. If they're considering them to be their whole crime scene photographs, there's a lot missing from the scene photo.
Whoever indicated to you, the city of Grosse Pointe Farms, at any time with their involvement on this case that commenced on June 12, 2010, was a crime scene case.
Objection. You can answer that to the extent that that didn't involve discussion with counsel, or hold on.
Let me finish it. Go ahead.
To the extent that that did not involve a conversation. Hold on a second. Now you can go ahead and answer that question, just limited to if anybody told you that.
Well, first, no one said, okay, so I can clarify. Being an investigator for as long as I was, we, at the agency I worked for, we had a certain set of protocol. If you had a death investigation, the possibility of some kind of foul play, because when you call out the amount of assets that were called out here, you have to consider there was some kind of foul play. Our method of operation would have been to photograph that whole scene, from the car to the lake, along the whole lake's edge, because you've called out so many assets, you need to be able to document what's there. You asked me a question earlier about Midwest photography of the dive team taking pictures of if there were any footprints leading away. Well, that's, that question should have been answered with police photographs the night that it happened, not a day or 2 days later. So, there was people all over that scene. So who knows what photographs were taken 2 days later that depict and what they depict. You could have walked in the water. Someone could have walked in the water to avoid showing footprints coming out of the water. But that's all supposition, but it's a possibility.
So it's all speculation.
That's speculation. But, we would have worked it, the way I would have worked it as a crime scene investigator would have been taking photographs of that whole thing from the car to the lake's edge and then along the lake's edge to determine if someone in fact walked away. And all the photographs that were taken, you can't determine the size of the shoes, the impressions of the foot made the footprints, or how big the person was that sat on the break wall, because certain things weren't done that should have been done.
Would you agree with the statement that every incident that a police officer comes upon or is dispatched to is not necessarily a crime or a crime scene?
Well, that's true.
All right. Now, can you tell me, are there any exceptions to the need to obtain a warrant to enter a locked vehicle?
There are some exceptions.
Can you tell me some exceptions?
Would be a plain view, if there's a crime in progress in the car or some kind of contraband in the car that you can identify, or exigent circumstances. But I don't see either of those in this case.
So you wouldn't consider tracks in snow leading to a water's edge without any evidence of return tracks to be potentially an exigent circumstance, such as a person in frigid waters?
Objection form.
Well, first, there's no footprints that are identifiable leading from the car to the water's edge. And then the footprints that the officer observed from 130 some odd feet away, I find to be, you know, again, that's something he saw. I'm not clairvoyant, but had I seen footprints from 130 feet away and walked down there, how do you put together that the footprints originated from the vehicle 130 feet away? It could have been somebody walking down the road that decided to take a look at the water's edge.
Regardless if it was someone coming down the road and the footprints only go down to the water's edge and there's no evidence of any footprints coming back, wouldn't it be reasonable to include in your analysis that possibly someone is in Lake St. Clair?
I don't see where the photographs depict someone not walking back. See, that's the part I have a problem with when I look at the photographs that were taken and the reports that were written. They contradict each other to a certain degree. You don't have footprints coming back because no photographs were taken of that. You have no photographs leading down the break wall, like as if the person walked down that edge. I live in Florida. You know, we have water all over the place. People park their cars near the water all the time and walk to the water's edge. We don't call out the Coast Guard and dive teams every time we find that.
How many search and rescues in frigid water have you personally participated in?
Not in frigid water, but drowning is drowning.
Drowning is drowning, regardless of the year.
Right.
Time of year, whatever.
Right.
Okay. Have you ever been licensed as a member of any Michigan police force?
No, sir.
Do you know the protocols that are used by the City of Grosse Pointe Farms with respect to coming upon a situation such as this versus, well, you don't even have the same situation in Florida because you don't have frozen temperatures in the wintertime.
But hypothermia can start in 60-degree water, and our waters get cold enough in the wintertime to where you can have hypothermic reactions. But the bottom line to this, you know, from my point of view, when I looked at the case, because I'm basing this just on what I've seen, I'm not making any educated guesses other than what I can observe. You have a car sitting in a parking lot of a church, and we have churches too, and people go to church in the middle of the night. Sometimes they leave their car there and go to dinner with a friend. If the situation was warranted that we thought something might have happened, I'd have called the canine unit and said, hey, sniff around this car, see where this person may have went. If it rose to that I thought it was that suspicious. The other thing would have been that I would have called in the plate first to find out who owned the car, rather than knocking on a door before I even ran the plate. How would I know who owned that car?
What evidence do you have that there was whose door got knocked on first
No,
off?
based on what I've read in the police reports and based on the indication of when the tag was run, an officer went to the Romain residence looking for Joann, and the tag was run after that. And Joann's not even registered on the car. So that didn't make sense.
So let me ask you this. What evidence do you have that documents a time in any record of when an officer went to Joann Romain's
It's
home?
reflected in the reports and their police reports.
Show me.
I'd have to dig through them.
Please do.
Because I
think you've marked
didn't
them.
write them down in here.
Did you take any notes with respect to your review in this matter?
Well, what I did was after I review things and I take the notes and I do my reports, you know, then I dispense of all. I've always done that. I've never kept notes, never in my whole career. It's always gone. It goes into a formal report, and that would be it. Now, do you want me to read all these to find that, or?
Well, let me ask you this.
That's what I'd have to do.
Have you ever read the deposition of Michelle Romain?
No, I have not. I've not read any depositions.
Could you turn to the very first slide of your slide presentation in the PowerPoint?
That one different than the one I have. Would you?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Can I see it for a minute?
Sure.
Can I see yours?
Go right ahead,
They're not
because we
lined
were
up.
told this
That's
was
what I'm
the-
confused about.
Well, we were given
Yeah.
something else initially, and then we were told this is the official report, and so I don't know whether any of this is actually authored by you, or someone else copied it, or did this, that, or the other thing.
Let me see. I'm just trying to see if what we both have is the same thing.
I sure hope
For
so.
clarification, the copy you printed out is two-sided, number one, and it puts
Okay, I
one
see
slide
what you
on
did.
each page.
All right, and he has 2 slides
He
on the
has 2
page.
slides on the
That's
page
why
the way
we're,
he chose to
you
print
and I
it
are
out.
not seeing the
No, that's the way it was given to me.
We
Yeah.
didn't choose to print it out.
Right.
This is the way
We
it was
didn't give you the
delivered to us.
PowerPoint?
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right, it's just a
Have you
different,
found
it's just a
that what I'm
different printout.
referring to?
That's,
You can make that representation, Keith, but I mean.
No, that's fine. I just don't want to be, I printed out.
Well, this appears to have been printed out by someone in this office on July 26, 2016. I've also received from Ms. Michelle Romain, prior to her November 20, 2015 deposition, an expert opinion report of Salvatore Rastrelli, and it basically is 100% the same as what was in the expert report that was provided,
I
which
agree.
is fine.
No, I agree. I just think we have just a formatting issue here.
Okay.
There's nothing more than printing it out different ways.
Sure. All right, can you
That's what I
find your
got.
initial sentence under the January 12, 2010 PowerPoint presentation entry slide?
I think that's it.
that's that one, right. Now I got to find that information.
Have you found the PowerPoint? I want to
We
focus
have
on
that.
it.
We
All right,
agree
I
on
wanna-
that.
all
So
right.
now I have to go to the police report.
No, let's go, let's
come up with
look,
the
I
time.
want to ask you if this is a misprint.
Hold on a second. You asked him specifically, there's a pending question, would you please go through the police reports and tell me where that is?
I will
He's tried to
I
answer.
will withdraw that.
Okay, that's
Oh, okay.
fine.
Let us look at the very first bullet of the January 12, 2010. I believe, and I quote, it reads as follows: 1/12/10 at 2125, GPF PD officer arrived at the home of Joann Matouk inquiring as to if she was missing, unquote.
Correct.
What information did you review and take as much time as you need to find where the Grosse Pointe Farms Police Department sent someone to the Romain?
And that may have been, the misprint might have been, that should have been Woods. There's too many GPs in here, I might have made a mistake
Well,
there.
regardless, I mean, can you find where you have a record of anybody
Right.
going
Show
down?
me a record of what you reviewed that led you to conclude that at 2125, someone associated with one of the points went to the Joann Matouk Romain home.
Later. These are all days later. Where's the? These are all the later. Trying to find the initial report.
Mr. Rastrelli, can I ask you to shift, sir? More specific.
Oh, did I move out of your?
Moving it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where's that other?
So you guys stay up once again?
I did.
Trying to find the report from the initial night.
That's as good a game as you will ever see.
Are we off the record?
No.
No.
Yeah, we should.
Sure, we can do that. Let's go off the record.
No, because if he's going to sit here spending time, I mean, that should, you've asked him a request that's going to require some review, so we should stay on.
I'm sorry, you said you want this to go against the 7 hours of the...
He asked him a question that requires him to research something in a record that goes against the time. Let's see if we have an issue. When we get to 7 hours, if it's a problem, we can have a discussion whether you have more time or not. I tend to suspect that we will jointly work together, that you'll get your question in.
All the dates on these are all post, except for one. I cannot find the originating report where they found the car. There's something in that file that I'm
Help
missing.
yourself.
I'm
I
just
mean-
looking, I don't see it here.
Is it possible that that was a statement that was told to you by Michelle with respect to the time someone came to her home?
I hate to answer that without knowing for sure at this point, because I remember seeing it in writing.
Well, take your time, because I submit, I have never seen any written document in this case that indicates anyone went to the home of Joann Matouk Romain, other than the initial pleading, which has been amended twice, i.e. the complaint.
You don't have to allow this. If we go off the record, I can confer with him. Maybe we can clear this up, but it's your call.
No, he's got, this is everything he's looked at, and he's invited to go through it.
Yeah, I'm trying-
Perhaps there's another, in all fairness, Mr. Rastrelli, there's another pile of records in here as an exhibit that are Grosse Pointe Woods records. So maybe you saw it in there, I don't know.
Possible.
I'd be very surprised if he did.
I would be too. But I didn't write this novel.
These are all follow-up reports. I actually don't see anything in here but follow-up reports. I don't see the original incident report. These are
Would that
all
have been
follow-ups.
would that have been something you would have noted in your notes?
Can you get some binder clips? Some binder clips?
All follow-up reports. There's no, originating report. They're all follow-up.
Did you have an originating report?
I remember seeing it.
We'll go through the whole stack there. This is what you produced in response to the notice of production, Ducas Tecum.
Do we have, we need two more. We use them for something else.
I have a feeling we're gonna have to commandeer some of the sandwiches next door.
There is Subway.
Outside the door. I haven't seen anybody going in. They all just keep standing looking around because if they're expecting us.
So you can make on the way to the bathroom.
It's in plain view, and these are exigent circumstances. They're on the curtilage.
I don't know, I went to Pakistan one time and got off the plane. The second time I went, unfortunately, it was the time of night, the only
Remember,
place...
this is on the record, sir.
Well, it's the record, I don't care.
I don't know. Some of those jokes earlier, I don't think you want on the record. I don't think you want to preserve those.
That's for my record, my CD.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
You want to mark this one?
Not yet.
Here's 2 copies of it.
I don't see it here. I don't see it.
Would you review, please, all of the materials that you produced here today, and please let me know whether you can say you have brought a complete complement of the materials you've reviewed, or you have not brought a complete complement.
Based on what I'm seeing here, this, to the best of my knowledge, looks like everything.
All right. So going back to that PowerPoint initial slide with the narrative, as you sit here today, am I correct that you cannot positively state that an officer from Grosse Pointe Farms Police Department went to the Joann Matouk home at 9:25 p.m. on January 12th, 2010?
Objection.
True? You can
Objection
answer.
Based on what I'm seeing here, I can't say that now, but I know I saw it in writing, and I can't answer it, why I can't find it right now.
And am I likewise correct that today, as you sit here, you cannot testify that an officer from Grosse Pointe Woods Police Department at 9:25 p.m. went to the home of Joann Matouk Romain on 1/12/2010?
Yeah, I would
Objection
have to say the same answer.
And can you tell me where in any of the materials that you've reviewed you were able to conclude that someone went to the Joann Matouk home prior to a lien being run on the plate on the Lexus?
I would, like I said, I can't find it here, but I know I saw it in writing, so unless I missed something, I would have to just say I can't say that for certain, but at this point, yeah, I'd have to agree with you.
Isn't it true that Michelle Romain told you she believed an officer came to the home at 9:24 p.m.?
No, 'cause that was not part of a discussion I had with Michelle. I saw it somewhere in writing. You know, I remember seeing it.
Did you see it
wasn't in a deposition,
did
because
you-
I never read a depo.
You have never read any depositions in this case, have you, sir?
No, not one deposition.
And if you haven't read the depositions, would I be correct that you haven't reviewed any of the exhibits to the depositions?
No, that's all I've seen were police reports and these other various reports that are here.
Did you ever ask if there were any records from the state of Michigan demonstrating when the Law Enforcement Information Network was accessed by Grosse Pointe police officers on January 12, 2010?
Yes, I did, because I received that here when I was here last year, because I didn't see it in the initial documentation, and it was provided here, and I saw it.
That was a letter from an individual at the state
No,
of Michigan.
it was an actual printout, like a computer printout that would have come from, you know, in Florida we have the DHMV, and
Right.
your counterpart for Michigan, it was something like
So you're not aware, as you sit here today, when officers from Grosse Pointe Farms on January 12, 2010 accessed the Law Enforcement Information Network from their mobile data units in their cars, which are not printed off.
Objection.
You're not aware of those contacts, are you?
What I saw was printed off and provided to council. You know, so if they did it electronically, somehow or another, council got a copy, because I know you can get those copies. Any state can provide them if you ask for them. The officer now might not print it out.
Do you know how long those records are kept in the state of Michigan?
I have no idea.
So it wouldn't surprise you if they weren't available after 3 years.
I would, maybe I'll
5 years,
answer.
you
They
wouldn't know.
provided it for me, though. I did see
Well,
it.
show me where it is, because you were to bring all your materials today, sir.
Hold on.
Again.
George, you gotta let him answer, please. Give him a chance
He
to
is
finish
done
his...
answering.
George, you're not. You're cutting him off. We can check the video. Please, just give him a chance to finish saying what he's saying.
I was-
And you're asking a question before he's even done answering. And it makes a terrible record for the court reporter. And I'll just ask the court, is that what's happening? Is it making it difficult for you?
Okay, that's enough, Keith.
No,
You made the
it's
point.
not enough.
Enough.
You made the point.
Would
You're
you
not going to
please finish
question
your
the
answer?
court reporter on the record.
Well, if it's making it difficult for her to take a clean record...
she can say something,
Is it
can't she?
making it difficult for you to take a
Keith,
clean
just let's
record,
move
Madam
on.
Court reporter?
You made your point, Keith. Let's move on.
Chris, I'm going to ask my question to the court reporter. Is it making it difficult for you to take a clean record? Is this
I'm going to place an objection on the record
Go
right now.
ahead.
This court reporter has not been sworn. She's not a witness. She's not under any type of notice
doesn't matter.
provided.
It
She hasn't been
makes no
subpoenaed to be
difference.
here. She's not going to state things on the record, okay? You're not going to question the court reporter on the record, Keith. You made your objection. You made your point. George will make an effort to not cut off the witness, and we'll move forward, okay?
Fine.
It's the same objection you've made every deposition. We understand.
But it continues.
Okay, and you made the objection, and I bet you it'll work.
Okay.
Would you finish your answer, please?
Okay, I did see a record. It was here in this office. In fact, I was sitting right where that gentleman sitting when I saw it, because I had that question.
I'm sorry, which gentleman?
The gentleman sitting next to you.
Okay.
As I was
Did you
sitting in
bring
that chair.
that record with you today?
No, because I didn't take it with me. It stayed here.
It is something that you utilize to formulate your opinion, at least as expressed in the first bullet point of your PowerPoint presentation. True?
The part that we're referring to is when they ran it in the lien. That's what I saw. That's what I don't have here because I didn't take it with me. I had the question because I saw something in the report that wasn't complete. So I said, where's the rest of this documentation? And then they had it here. So you may have a copy of it. I don't know. But I didn't have it because I didn't see it in the initial report.
While we're at a break, I'd like to place an objection on the record and reserve the right to recall this witness in the event that he's able to identify and produce the documents upon which he relies when formulating his opinion, since obviously, as he just stated, he looked at something, he went into his formulation or his opinion, and he is unable to produce it today.
Except he doesn't have to give you that which he doesn't have. He's identified it for you. You have it. If he doesn't have it, he can't give you what he doesn't have.
It's part of the deuces take him. He's supposed to bring his entire file.
He
We're
brought
entitled to know what he relied on. He can't identify it. He says he doesn't know what it was. It was a printout.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. Except he says he never took a copy of it.
Okay, we can take it. Look,
That's
if it
fine.
becomes an issue, we'll take it up with the judge.
That's fine.
I'm preserving the record here, okay?
That's fine. And I'm just stating that he gave you that which he had in his possession.
I join.
Fine. Wait, are we taking a break? I thought you said something about it.
No, I said while we were at break
Oh,
here.
sorry. Okay.
I'm going to hand you what appears to be an April 2nd, 2015 correspondence from a Liz Canfield, Lean Field Services Section, Michigan State Police. Is this the document that you were showing?
No, sir. This is not what I saw. What I saw, if you're familiar with the typical printouts that come from most...
Time out.
Yeah, Kevin, that's not what I saw.
I think you answered my question.
That's not what I saw.
All right. Is this what you saw?
This looks more like it because this is the type of printout I'm familiar with that comes from a motor vehicle.
You know, a pygmy elephant somewhat looks like an African elephant, but I want to know, is that what you saw, sir?
My best recollection, this is what it looked like, something like this. It was not a letter. It was a printout from where someone inquired into the system.
Did you write your report here at the offices of 1-800 Law Firm?
Objection that's protected by Rule 26. I instruct the witness not to answer.
Okay,
Wait.
for the record, Rule 26 does not protect communications, first of all. It doesn't protect the location of where he wrote his report. Second of all, it doesn't protect facts, data, assumptions, or anything else that goes into the expert report, anything he relied on in the opinion. If he sat here and wrote his report here, or he sat at Starbucks or the donut shop in your parking lot, that's not protected.
We believe that it is. I agree with you that you can know that which he received and that which he relied upon, and we will not object to that.
It also does not protect, oh, sorry, finish your objection.
We will object to the discussion of anything in terms of creation of his report.
And I'm going to place on the record right here, Rule 26B4C 1, 2, and 3 specifically exclude from any type of privilege anything upon any data, assumptions, or facts upon which the witness relies. If counsel told him something, if counsel or even Michelle Romain told him that somebody came to the house at 9:25, for example, on the day of that she went on January 12, 2010, somebody told him that and he relied on it, we're entitled to know that, and regardless of the source.
Agreed, and you didn't see me object when you asked him those questions.
You objected to the conversations with Michelle. If he relied on any of that, you absolutely did.
Hold on. Let's just be clear what I objected to. A general conversation with Michelle and what was discussed, I believe, is protected. If the question is what facts did she provide to you, You asked specifically the question, did Michelle Romain tell you this fact? There was no objection to that question.
Okay.
You asked me another one that I objected, and I thought about it for again, and realizing what he was saying there. So
Okay.
if you want to ask him, please identify what factual information you were provided
Tell
by
me this.
Michelle Romain. Hold on, let me finish. If you want to ask him
I'll ask him that later,
If
when
you
I
want to
get back
ask
to
him that, what factual information did she provide? I will not object to
Okay.
such a thing. Where he wrote his report, who he sat with.
We didn't ask who he sat with. We asked where he wrote his report. That's not a communication. A physical location is not a communication.
I just think it goes to the drafting, it goes to draft reports.
We didn't ask him for his
reports.
draft. We asked him where he was physically sitting.
Okay, I'm just going to object to that.
Okay, and you're going to instruct him not to answer?
I'm instructing him not to answer that question because it's part of the draft.
Because you believe a physical location is a communication.
I believe it is part.
Okay,
Hold on. It's not just the communications. It is the preparation of his report.
That's
that
not
is
protected.
Oh, it certainly is.
No, it's not.
Really?
Show me where it's protected. If you want to have this discussion, we can go off for a minute and have this, you can tell me where that is.
The witness would like to use
Let's
the
take a-
restroom. We're going to go off the record at this point in time.
I believe that. We'll do it later. Later.
It's a wham bam thank you ma'am. It doesn't take long.
11:30, we're now back on the record.
Just briefly before we get back in there, one of the discussions we had off the record was regarding the discovery of things involving the preparation of Mr. Rastrelli's and the other witnesses, well, for that experts, for that matter, for their reports. At issue was the location of where the witness drafted his particular report. We had a disagreement on whether or not that was protected under Rule 26, sub B, sub 4. So we had agreed to allow the Grosse Pointe Woods defendants to file an immediate motion to compel that information from the defendants without the need to file a formal discovery request. Is that correct, Mr. Holt?
That's correct, because plaintiff, we discussed it, plaintiffs will not agree, and there's no reason to waste time given the timescale. We have met and conferred, and in good faith, and you can file your motion.
Okay, thank you.
Would you please return to exhibit number 1? Right here.
Oh,
Page 1,
page 1.
section Roman numeral 3, materials reviewed and relied upon. As part of my work in this case, I've been provided with copies of the following documents and materials. Number 1, which witness reports and interviews were you provided copies of?
They're here.
Well, tell me which ones they are.
Go through them again.
There's only 17 exhibits, and it shouldn't take real long to find them, I wouldn't think.
Well, like this one, for example, this report, which was the Coast Guard report.
Well, is that a witness statement or an interview? It appears to me to be a record, and I'm looking for...
But it's statements to me.
What do you call a witness report?
Well, I would call anything like this, because I didn't interview these people. I'm relying on their statements that they make, so I would
Can you
consider
even-
them a witness.
All right, that's exhibit. What exhibit is that?
It's 11, I guess.
Can you tell me who authored exhibit 11 such that you're relying upon that individual's representations?
It's a Coast Guard report. Let's see who signed it, if it's even signed. A lot of times they're not. This one says, so far, nothing. This is the Coast Guard report. I don't see,
It's called case report, is it not?
Yes.
How many pages is it?
I have to count them. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 pages. Have you seen any other reports, correspondence, FOIA responses from the United States Coast Guard other than the exhibit you're holding in your hand?
This is it,
That's it.
for the Coast Guard.
All right. What other witness reports and interviews do you have that you are referring to in Arabic numeral 1 in part 3 of your materials reviewed?
Would be Exhibit 12.
Exhibit 12, which for the record is?
It's a spinal diagnosis from forensic pathologist Daniel Spitz.
All right. What else do you have? Let's put the statements right there.
And then this one. MTRT Dive Team, Tactical Worksheet Exhibit 10.
And who's the witness of that statement, if you know?
It's Bill something or other. Bill Robinette,
All right.
Director of MTRT.
Any other individuals that compiled information within Exhibit 10? If you know.
No, that's just
All right.
MTRT Dive Team.
Are there any other witness reports and interviews that you are including within your first paragraph in section Roman numeral 3?
Well, I also had information that I actually saw, and I spoke with Paul Hawk. But I don't have a copy of that here.
All right. I'm sticking with number 1
Okay.
on your Exhibit 1. Witness reports and interviews. Any other witness reports or interviews that you relied upon and that you brought with your responses to the notice to produce?
Not when I wrote the report. This is it.
All right.
The police reports on those.
All right. The second item says interviews from other persons. What are you referring to there?
Well, I spoke with Mr. Hawk briefly and had him show me what he saw from where he was the night of the incident, from his recollection.
Did you receive any information from Mr. Hawk that in any manner whatsoever influenced your opinions?
No, I just was curious on what he had to say and what he saw, what he observed.
When did you interview Mr. Hawk? Before or after he was deposed in this case?
Objection.
I don't know when he was deposed, so I can't answer that.
Well, why don't
I can
you-
answer when I was here,
All right, when was that?
June 2015, so I don't know if he had been deposed or not. I don't know that.
And how long did you spend with Mr. Hawk?
10 minutes?
Did you, prior to interviewing Mr. Hawk, have any idea of Mr. Hawk's involvement in this matter?
All I know was that he was some sort of a witness to an incident that he thought was suspicious.
And how do you know that?
And I heard that from Michelle Romain.
All right, so that would be a fact that Michelle Romain imparted upon you, correct?
She just mentioned this gentleman, and I said I'd like to interview him.
What particular facts did Michelle tell you during your initial telephone conversation with her?
And I'm not going to object to that question other than just be careful that you only tell her facts that you were given in that discussion that you had about the facts that you were given. You understand my
Yeah, I
distinction?
understand that, yeah.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Well, she was looking for an investigator that could review a crime scene, reports, photographs, things of that nature, and gave me an overview of what the police reports were. Basically, mother was disappeared and wasn't found until X amount of months later, and she had some questions about how the police conducted the investigation, and would I review what they had for material, and I said yes. And that she had, this gentleman, Mr. Hawk, had come forward at some point, and that I might be interested to talk to him, just to see how that worked out in this case.
Did you take any notes of the general overview that she described for you during that initial phone call with her?
No, sir. I wanted to see the documents. That's something you...
And the documents that you saw are those that you brought here today?
These documents here. Other than that one we discussed earlier that I take with me,
All right.
that I saw here.
Anyone that you interviewed besides Paul Hawk?
There was one other person I spoke with, and I can't recall his name now, was a young gentleman that worked at a service station the night that Miss Matouk disappeared.
Did you personally speak with that gentleman?
Spoke to him for about 5 minutes, just to
Where?
ask him if he remembered.
At the gas station?
Service station.
Do you remember in what town that was in?
You know, it's nearby here. I don't remember that. I'm
You
not
didn't
from
take
here.
any notes of that
No,
conversation?
because I just wanted to talk to him just to see if he had any idea what her mental state was, what he thought of her, was she acted normal or abnormal, and that was it.
Did you ask him what time he may have witnessed Joann Matouk Romain that day?
That would probably be in my report. If I did, I'd wrote it down.
Well, please show me, because I don't
I
remember
have to
seeing
find it.
anything
Go
in
back.
your report that talks about
That's it.
conversations with filling station attendants.
If it's not in here, then I didn't think it was that important, so I'm looking for it.
Would you agree that that might be an important piece to a timeline of events that occurred after 5 p.m. on January 12th, 2010?
Yes, but I believe that was all documented by other investigators, police investigators that had spoke with him.
All right.
So I didn't come here to develop a suspect. I came here to just basically review the way the crime scene was documented, what was missing, what would lead someone to believe that foul play probably occurred and that this was not documented properly. That's what I was here for.
Just so I'm clear, you've not read any deposition testimony of any of the witnesses or parties that have been deposed, true?
I've not read any of those, no, sir.
And I think you've already told me the only Coast Guard records you've seen are those that you brought with you here today.
That right there, yes, sir.
And when did you receive those?
I received those about the same time I received this paperwork in June.
All right. Now, let's focus a little bit on January 12th, 2010. Do you know specifically which of the defendants was first on the scene?
I'd have to go back to the police report, but I believe it was either Colombo or Tripiano, I think it was, from my
Okay.
recollection.
Now, can you tell me what evidence you've seen in your review of this case that would constitute a suspicion of foul play with respect to the automobile?
When you look at the automobile, and as I had mentioned before, there's the fact that it's sitting here, you know, it's not suspicious enough to initiate the kind of response without bringing, if nothing, just bringing dogs first. And then the way the car was processed, as a crime scene investigator, that the interior of that car should have been fumed with super glue, and it wasn't. There was powder thrown everywhere on vinyl and leather, which you're not going to get a fingerprint that way off of vinyl or leather. There was no DNA collected. I mean, you know, it seems like the response,
I just want to talk about
and that's what I'm,
the time of the 12th, sir.
that's what I'm talking about.
George,
When-
he's answering your question, you cut him off. Please finish answering your question.
Okay, the 12th, the night of the 12th.
What evidence of foul play did Trupiano, Colombo, or Rogers have under their noses that should have, in your opinion, allowed them to conclude foul play at this location had occurred with respect to the automobile?
Objection form.
Okay, but my answer to that would be the way they investigated this case as a suicide would also go right back to that foul play. If you're going to call out the Coast Guard and dive teams, obviously you think something happened. How could you? I don't have ESP, and I'm sure these three gentlemen don't have it either. How could they conclude she committed suicide and that someone didn't drag her away from the car? So, you know, in my opinion, if you're going to jump to the conclusion that you're going to call out the United States Coast Guard and a dive team and detectives, obviously there's something that they're seeing that's not here in the paperwork. So my conclusion would be, well, if you're going to go this far, why not do the whole thing right? Let's call it a homicide and then weed it all out, and it not be a homicide, or it be a suicide, or it be an accident. But that doesn't reflect in this paperwork either, accident or suicide. So how did they get to that conclusion? So this is where I'm coming in 5 years later, looking at a series of photographs, a series of footprints, a series of reports that say this woman committed suicide. I don't know how they came to that conclusion that night. That's the confusion.
What have you reviewed in any of these materials that evidences any of the Grosse Pointe Farms police officers concluding there was a suicide on 1/12/2010?
Well, the reports clearly reflect that the officer said that he saw footprints leading to the lake, and then they conducted a search for a body.
Did you find it reasonable that under the circumstances of this case, that being footprints in the snow, observed to lead to the water's edge, with no return footprints anywhere, that possibly someone was in the water? Was that reasonable to conclude?
Objection form.
And it goes right back to, again, that there's no proof of that either. They say it in a report that there were no return footprints, but there are no photographs indicating that someone walked away or walked down the shoreline or along the break wall. So I'm left with, if there's no photographs depicting the overall scene, how do I know what's in the paperwork is true? I don't know.
You believe all these officers are lying?
I'm not saying all of them are lying, but I'm saying that because someone didn't do a complete crime scene investigation, there's a lot of holes in this investigation to begin with. So it leaves a very suspicious element to the situation. Like I had said, as a police officer as long as I was, the one thing I always made sure we tried to do when we did crime scene work is cover every aspect of the crime scene through photographs, collect DNA, hair samples, whatever we can collect to try to eliminate any suspicion that we didn't investigate thoroughly. And in this case, it doesn't look like it was investigated thoroughly.
Move to strike as non-responsive. Again,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, Mr. Rastrelli, was it reasonable for these initially responding officers, upon coming across the tracks going in one direction, assume for the moment that's all that was there, was it reasonable for them to assume someone might be in the lake and need to be rescued?
Objection form.
It's a yes or a no.
I would say no.
Based on what?
Well, if they arrived at the vehicle, did they check to see if the vehicle was warm still or cold? If the vehicle's been cold, had run in a while, by the time they get anybody out of that water, it's not going to be a rescue, it's going to be a body recovery. The water's 30 degrees. You're not going to live more than 20 or 30 minutes in that water unless you're wearing protective clothing.
Are you aware how this individual was dressed that evening?
Yeah, they weren't any more aware of it until her body was found than I was.
Correct,
But that would not protect her in that cold of water.
You weren't provided, were you, in your Coast Guard records with a copy of the results of the Coast Guard cold exposure survival model that they did on Joann Matouk Romain?
No, I didn't look at that because I'm a professional dive instructor and I know that you cannot live in the water that long, that cold.
Are you a certified ice diver?
I've dove in that kind of cold, wearing dry suits, wearing wetsuits.
Sir, are you a certified ice diver?
No.
By NAUI, PADI, YMCA,
A PADI
any organization?
instructor. But you have to understand, as a PADI instructor, master instructor, we know what those limits are for the body in that kind of water. She could not have survived more than 30 minutes, if she was lucky. She was only wearing a jacket and a pair of pants. She wasn't wearing protective clothing. Not to sit. You lose your body heat 20 times faster in the water than you do in the air.
Are you aware that alleged aquatic expert Dr. David Smith has testified in this case that pursuant to the models that he was familiar with and from the Coast Guard, that it was reasonable to expect that Joann Matouk Romain would have 1.3 hours of time to use her muscles and use of limbs?
I think you better look at the charts again, because I don't agree with that at all. I've seen people shivering in hypothermic in 60-degree water in an hour immersion with a wetsuit on. So I don't believe that, not for one bit. I've dove in water 60 degrees and less in caves, and you get so cold you start shaking. No way I would believe for 1 minute that she would be able to live an hour and a half in that kind of temperature.
Thank you. Gesundheit. Have you ever been a member of the Coast Guard?
No, sir.
Member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary?
No, sir.
Ever stationed anywhere where there's frigid water rescue possibilities?
Frigid?
Yep.
No, sir.
Have you been a member of the Armed Services? At any time?
What was I going to do with rescuing someone out of the water? That's what I'm trying.
You want to answer my question?
Yes. No. Not in frigid areas. No, sir. I've never been around that kind of recovery.
So I'm going to hand you a CESM result dated 1/12/2010. I'm going to ask, have you ever seen that at any time before today?
No, I've never seen this.
All right.
No.
And you're not familiar with what that represents itself to be, are you?
I understand what it represents, but this is a 140-pound woman, not a 160-some-odd-pound woman, and a woman that's 60-something years old at the time of her immersion in the water. And other physiology also is reflected in hypothermic conditions. If you're in great, great shape, Navy SEALs that are 25 years old immerse in water for hours sometimes and survive, shaken, but they come out of it. I don't believe Miss Romain would have survived in 30-degree water.
What gave you the impression that Ms. Romain was 60 years old at the time
Well,
of
she
her
was
immersion?
1954. I'd have to do some additions and subtractions, so she was probably 58 or something like that at the time.
Like 54
56.
maybe?
Or 54, but she
You
still
don't
was
really
not
know.
in physical shape. Look at the physical condition of this woman who had to traverse down this icy embankment and crawl down this break wall and then get into this water without falling. I did it without the snow, and I'm in pretty good shape for a man my age, and it was difficult to do in the summer last year. And I'm expected to believe that this woman wearing high heels 4 inches high walked down the concrete slope and traversed the break wall, climbed over it, and got down the water without falling on her face. That's really hard to believe. It just doesn't make sense.
Could you turn to page 10 of Exhibit 1?
Now, which one?
Exhibit 1,
My exhibit, my report,
Correct.
page 10.
page 10. And at the top of page 10, are there 4 bullet issues in your copy?
Yes, I'm looking at 4, yeah.
And the first bullet reads, no damage to her shoes, semicolon, no scratches or gouges, correct?
Yes, sir.
In your PowerPoint presentation, however, do you not have a photograph of her shoes that you have labeled, quote, notice toes of shoes have signs of being dragged across hard surface? Have you found that photograph?
Yeah, I saw that. I put that in there.
Would you agree that's evidence of damage to the footwear?
Yeah, it's slight damage to the footwear, which could have came from being submerged. She traveled 30 miles, according to where she was found and according to where they said she went in the water.
So that could be evidence that she truly was entering Lake St. Clair near St. Paul's and found off Bob Lowe Island months thereafter.
Not necessarily that she actually went that distance. We don't know that she ever went in the water by St. Clair Lake. She could have been put in the water where she was found.
What evidence do you have
We
that she
don't.
was put in the water where she was found?
I don't. I have no evidence she went in the water in Lake St. Clair either.
So what do? You just don't have any conclusion? It's total speculation as to any conclusions in this case?
Not speculating anything. There is no proof that she climbed down that wall. It's physically almost impossible for a reasonable person in health to do that in that kind of weather and those kind of conditions. The way she was dressed with those heels, I don't see how she could have got down that. That water is only about 1.5 feet deep right by the break wall, and it's
When
full
you
of
were there?
rocks. I was there. I checked the water depth for 2010, and because there was so limited rainfall, that the average depth in that area was between 1 foot and 2 feet deep. Until you get to the channel, which is several hundred
far
yards
out?
out. The channel is several hundred yards out.
So I guess it's your opinion if she did enter the water didn't come above her waist due to the depth of the water at the time you believe the depth existed.
Well,
At 1.5 foot, correct?
Exactly.
And so everything above could be dry, that wasn't exposed to the water, correct?
All right, so she's up to her waist in the water.
And she can walk. She could have walked 100 feet, 200 feet. Even by your estimation of 20 minutes, she could have walked 100, 200 yards.
Have you ever walked in the water on rocks that are out there?
Sir, I've
can't-
walked, yes. Would you answer my question
Well,
now?
there's no way I could agree that she walked that far on that rocky bottom without getting those heels caught in crevices, tripping and falling. I could barely walk in it, and I could see where I was putting my feet, and I was wearing wetsuit boots. And I could barely walk on those rocks. You had to see where you're putting your feet. There's no way she could have done it in these heels without seeing the bottom. I mean, she couldn't. It was dark. There's no way she could have seen the bottom and walked across that rocky bottom.
You don't know how familiar or unfamiliar she was with that area, do you, sir?
Oh, so the whole area is full of rocks. I'm familiar with areas like
Would you
that.
answer my question,
Okay.
please?
No, I'm not aware of how familiar she was.
Thank you. Now, we've talked about Paul Hawk.
Yes.
You've talked about some gasoline attendant. Anyone else you interviewed?
No, that was it.
And when you conducted the interviews, were you by yourself?
No, Michelle Romain was there because I didn't know where these places were, so she took me to those places.
Well, where did you see Mr. Hawk for your interview? At his home?
No, I had him meet us at the church.
At the church?
Yeah.
And it was just you, Michelle, and Mr. Hawk?
And I believe her sister might have been there, Kelly. I don't
Kelly?
know.
Have you ever spoken to Kelly about the case?
No, other than just in generic terms. I never got into any details with her.
All right. And I think you told me Mr. Hawk didn't impart any information on you that was relied upon in reaching any of your opinions, correct?
Well, again, I wasn't brought here other than to see what people that they saw and what you can see with your own eyes. That's why I came up here.
All right. Now, number 3, the Grosse Pointe Farms Police Department reports. They are marked as an exhibit.
Okay.
And which one is it, sir?
Well, it would be them all. I read them all, so.
No.
Which exhibit?
It's pretty simple. I want you to look at the materials you brought. We've put an exhibit number on all of them.
Right.
Some are Woods
Oh.
reports, some are Farms reports.
Right.
Tell me what exhibit is the embodiment of the Grosse Pointe Farms police reports that you have reviewed.
Well, this one's not numbered.
Well, maybe you took it apart. What's it say at the very top?
Huh? It's just not numbered. I have to find it then.
What's it say at the top, sir?
It says Grosse Pointe Woods Police Department, but it's not numbered in an exhibit. That's what I was saying. Those are. This one's not. I'm looking to see what the exhibit number is, if it was stamped or not.
Well, let's put a sticker on it.
I don't know. You want to take a look and see if it's in there? I don't want to make you make it twice and it was already marked or something and I just missed it. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
looked at these. Exhibit 8.
That embodies the records of the Grosse Pointe Woods Police Department.
That's what I was given. Yeah.
Right. No other records other than those?
No.
All right. I'm going to hand you what we've marked as Exhibit 9. And can you tell me what those are?
Grosse Pointe Farms.
Any other records from Grosse Pointe Farms other than what's in that exhibit?
No, sir.
All right. Exhibit 13 is what, sir?
These are my training records, and just for a record, I looked through this. For some reason, some of them are missing. I don't know if in the printer something got stuck, but there are a few not in there. But that is the majority of them.
All right. And what is number 14?
This is the second amended complaint against the defendants.
Did you review that?
I looked through it, but again, I didn't put any weight on this because what I wanted was, my own observations of what was done and what wasn't done. But I did review that, yes.
Was that exhibit number 15? And what is that?
These are some email correspondence from this office to me.
All right. And what's number 16?
More of the same, more email correspondence.
And would that be the case of Exhibit 17, more of the same?
Yes, sir.
Just so I'm crystal clear and totally understand what it is that you have reviewed, with the exception of one printout of a lien access for the plate on this Lexus, are these all of the materials that you have reviewed in formulating your report, opinions, and conclusions?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you tell me where in these 17 exhibits we have a statement from Joann Matouk Romain's psychologist?
I believe it was this one. We looked at it a minute ago. It was Dr. Forensic something, Dr. Spitz.
Wasn't he the pathologist?
Oh, I thought he was a psychological report.
Yeah, well, let's find him. He's in here, that Dr. Spitz.
Maybe it's down there.
It could be. There, yeah, Daniel.
Okay, that's my mistake.
What's your
It
mistake?
says forensic pathologist. I thought that was psychologist on there. I read that wrong.
You know, you ought to wear those cheaters if you need them. Now's not the time to be vain.
No. Can't help it. I'm honest. I made a mistake.
All right, can you tell me where is the psychologist report? I didn't see it in these.
I didn't have a psychologist report, so I made a mistake.
So I should cross off
Yes.
number 7 in exhibit number 1.
Yes.
Statements from Joann Matouk Romain's psychologist.
Yes,
You have never seen, strike that. Is it true, sir, that the only medical records you've seen related to Joann Matouk Romain
Is that?
that being exhibit number 12, correct?
Yes, that's what that one is.
Well, sir, this is a little more than Mr. Spitz's report, isn't it?
The Spitz. Oh, and Jensen. Michael, I made 2 mistakes.
Well, do you have anywhere in your critique Dr. Jensen's records?
No, sir, this is it. Just this one letter. This was on the top of it, and I made a mistake there.
Let's look at Exhibit 1, Section 3, Paragraph 8. Statements from JMR's family. First off, which family members did you receive statements from?
I received I believe it was just Michelle.
What type of statement? Was it written?
Yes.
And was it in handwriting?
No, it was typed.
And did you bring that with you here today?
It's here.
Show me, please.
I don't have it here, though, but I brought it.
Did you leave it in your car? Is it in a briefcase? We've marked everything you produced this morning, and I have not seen anything typed as allegedly written by Michelle Romain.
No, like I said, it's here somewhere. I don't know where it's at, though.
How long was the statement?
I don't remember, a couple pages. Just a timeline is what it basically was.
Oh, a timeline. Is that possibly where your 9:24 p.m. time came from? With respect to a knock on the door?
I can't say that for certain without seeing it. I remember I saw it in writing. I don't remember now at this point if it was on that or if it was on a police report.
On a break, we will see if we can find the document which is missing.
Let's take that break right now.
Let's do it.
Okay, the time is 12:04.